A very good afternoon to everyone. And game tech has been a transformation in not just for gamers, but also for people who want to engage in something different, right? Gaming technology, making use of AR, VR, as we learned in the previous session, and it's been people are using it to help cancer patients and to bring a little joy in their life. So on that very special note, I would like to welcome Mr. Vikrant Agarwal, our speaker for the gaming technology session. Mr. Vikrant is a product lead at Amazon Gaming Studios, where he is helping launch the next generation of games and gaming services. He has worked for over 6 years at multiple gaming studios such as EA, DENA, Machine Zone, and Amazon Games, and he has worked over 8 gaming titles, grossing over $2 billion. He knows what truly drives the player AERM funnel, game monetization, and world class live operations. It's all about the players and providing them with an experience they truly value. He enjoys playing Cash Royale and Archero on mobile and Age of Empires 2 on PC. He holds an MS degree in Information Security Policy and Management from Carnegie Mellon University and a Bachelor's of Engineering in and Information Technology from Pune University, India. We are honored to have you here with us, sir. I now pass on the stage to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here and saying those nice things about me. If you give me a second, I'll get my video going and my presentation loaded. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, we can go ahead and get started then. So, hi everyone, I'm Vikrant Agarwal, and today we're going to be talking about product management in the gaming industry. I'm going to assume everyone here is familiar with the basic terminology in games, like when I say MMO or if I say FPS or a free-to-play game. I'm going to take that as an assumption, but for the product management side, I'll walk you through it all. Okay, so the agenda for today, I'm going to start from my journey. How did I go from PICD to Amazon and everything in between? Then we're going to talk about some of the basics of product management. I'll start with the business strategy side and then move to the analytics and the more technical side. Then we'll get to the theme for today, which is envision the future and what's coming up next for games. And in the end, we'll have enough time for Q&A. So, we can go ahead and do that. This is an interactive session, so I will have some questions to discuss in between. So we can, you can give me your responses in chat. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing, this is actually my blog. And this is one of the key reasons I managed to get in the game industry, because when I was trying to join the industry, everyone said, hey, Vic, when we talk to you, we realize you're such a big gamer and you're so enthusiastic, but in your resume, you've not worked in the games industry. So how do we know about that? So I made a blog, wrote a bunch of stuff about games. And then when I would go for an interview, the interviewers would check my blog out and say, okay, this guy knows his gaming stuff. He's truly passionate. I've also written like a 10-page article about how I went from, consulting in banking to the gaming industry. And I can't cover all the details. You can see that in my blog. But for now, I'll give you a really quick synopsis. So as I mentioned, I studied at PICT in India in engineering, like a lot of you on the call would have. And when I was at PICT, I really enjoyed learning about IT and computer science, and I wanted to study more. And I'm like, maybe I should apply for my master's and see if I can learn something new. So I was fortunate enough to go to Carnegie Mellon, and my degree there was in computer security, because after I took the networking classes at PICT, I was really interested in computer networks and security. So I'm like, hey, why not do a master's in that? And once I did my master's in computer security, I'm like, I want to apply this, I want to use this in a real world setting. And I thought, consulting would be a good place to join, because I can work at many different companies, whether it's a bank or a retail company or something different, and learn different industries and try to figure out where do I eventually want to work. So I started working at Deloitte, and eventually my client Citibank made me an offer. So I'm like, I was thinking of going to banking. Why not start now? And while I was there, I realized that I was writing a lot of VBA and SQL code. And while I enjoyed that and I really enjoyed crunching numbers, I didn't enjoy being in the financial world. I wanted to do something that I was passionate about. And I took about 2 years to search and be like, I like tech. Let's apply for tech jobs. And while I was visiting California, it turned out my friend's roommate worked at Disney Games. And from him, I learned a lot about the gaming industry. And to cut a long story short, I did thousands of applications and gave hundreds of interviews. And then I wound up at my dream job at EA. I have to tell you, it was amazing. The first time I walked in at EA, seeing all the gaming around me, seeing big monitors with games and console, it was pretty awesome. And the first game I worked on was called Dawngate. It was EA's competitor to League of Legends. And I worked on that as the lead analyst. I was doing a lot of analytics, which I'll go into some depth later on in this session. And then eventually I wanted to move to the business side. So I worked on Pogo.com as a monetization manager. I really enjoyed looking at the revenue and how much money these games make. So I'm like, let's slide learning more about this. So I went to the Japanese company, which is DENA, learning the Japanese style of games and how to run live operations. And once I understood the basics of that, I'm like, let's go to the best company possible for live operations, which at that time was MZ or Machine Zone. Machine Zone had these games called Game of War and Mobile Strike, which I joined, and then I helped launch Final Fantasy. If you look at the publicly available data for this on App Annie, each one of these games grosses over $1 billion a year. And we did that with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, working some crazy hours. But, in the end, you were making, one of the top 5 games on mobile. So that was pretty fulfilling. And once I learned, world-class live operations, I'm like, where can I go to build the next big thing? And that's when Amazon came into the picture. They had the best of the best. So they're like, hey, why don't you come here and try building something new and exciting? So I worked at Amazon Games for a while. I also worked at Twitch Prime for a little bit, which gives you like free loot in your favorite games, which help drive more Prime customers and more people in the Prime ecosystem. So it's something that I really enjoyed doing. And this is just a quick history of my PM journey and how I went from college to Amazon. I'm happy to take more questions if you're interested later on. But for now, let's get to the main thing for today, product management. So what is product management? I'm not going to give you a textbook definition. I'll just tell you what it means to me. For me, it has 3 things in it, as that diagram shows. The first, the tech. And if you're a PM, you need to understand the basic tech and analytics. That's really important. But when you combine that with the business side and the strategic side about why are you making this game? Where do you want to go with this? That becomes much more powerful. And the one thing which I had no experience in and that I learned along the way was user experience or game design. What kind of game are we making? Why are we making this game? How many levels should it have? How many bosses should it have? And so on and so forth. So when you combine these 3 things, tech, strategy or business, and the player experience, that's when you get a product manager. And now I'll walk you through the details for this. So what is a gaming PM, right? As I was mentioning, if you deep dive into the business side of it, there's 3 components to it. First, as I was saying, is the strategy, right? Why are we making this game? What does the P&L statement look like? How much money will we make from this? Is this a good idea to make this game? Should we make it for PC or console or maybe mobile? What about VR? Those are the strategic and the business questions. Execution is more about how many people do we need? How many PMs do we need? Engineers, artists, what does the roadmap look like? Should we do a quick soft launch or leave it in soft launch for a year? Those are the kind of nitty gritty execution questions you answer. And the last part is leadership. One of the fundamental skills a PM needs to have is to be a leader by influence. What I mean by that is, as a PM, you not only work with engineers, but you have to work with artists, you have to work with marketing, finance, legal, application security, and a ton of different teams. And none of these teams report to you, so it's not like, oh, you work with me on my team, let's do this thing together. You have to lead by influence. You have to show them what your vision is. You have to share the common goal together. And that's how you can be a true leader and a gaming product manager. So when I tell people this about product management and what I do, people are like, huh, is that the same as a project manager? What's the difference? So I did want to talk a little bit about that today. A product manager, as I was just mentioning, covers strategy, execution, leadership, and so on. A project manager is your right hand person that you work hand in hand with to actually execute on the project. They take care of Jira, they work with the engineering managers, they handle the entire roadmap. The product manager helps prioritize things in the roadmap, the project manager helps execute it. A good producer or project manager can totally make or break your game. So I probably work the most with my producers. Then there's another role here called a program manager, which generally means it's somebody who handles a portfolio of products or projects. So they look at things at a grander vision. Hey, we're releasing 10 games this year. Should we release them all in the summer to capitalize on that? Or should we release them in the fall when there's more competition? Should we release a console and a mobile game together? Or should we do all consoles or all mobile together? And so on and so forth. So they look at things from a larger perspective. And the last one is a product marketing manager. As you can see, the acronyms are all pretty similar, PM, PMM, PGM. So it gets pretty confusing. A product marketing manager are generally of two types. The first one can be a brand manager. A brand manager takes care of launching it at a bigger scale in terms of advertisements, in terms of doing things at a physical store, in terms of doing TV advertisement. That's what a brand manager does, takes care of your brand. The other type is a performance marketing manager. They're the ones who take care of your Google ads, your Facebook ads, your Snapchat ads, and they really help drive concentrated users to your games. So the difference is that a brand manager could do a Super Bowl commercial, spend 6 months working on that, and get you 5 to 10 million eyeballs on your game. Whereas a performance marketing manager will say, hey, for males between 18 to 30 who have an average salary between X and Y and who play these games, send them to my game. So that's the difference in a product marketing manager. So the last part I wanted to give you a high level overview about before we move on to more fun stuff is what the details of what a game PM does. So the first part is the strategic AERM. Now I want to spell that out for you. AERM stands for acquisition, engagement, retention, and monetization. And this is something very common that game PMs use this term a lot. Acquisition is getting people into the game. As I mentioned, you work with your PMM to do that. Engagement retention goes to the next thing I have, which is features and design. How do you engage the player? How do you make them stay longer in your game? And the last part is monetization, which is running live operations, doing events, doing sales, doing bundles, and making sure everything goes out at the right time so that the player has a good time playing your game. And then the other part is the technical analytics part that I'm going to cover next. But first, I want to stop talking for a little bit, and I want to give you kind of an example of things we think about as PMs. So the first PM question that I have is about battle royales. So I'm sure most of you have at least heard of a battle royale. I've played them, Fortnite, PUBG, Call of Duty. There's just a bunch of different games and battle royales out there. Uh, the question I have is that there's so many, so it's a red ocean where all these battle royales are fighting with each other with 2 or 3 successes and a bunch of other failures. So if you were a product manager today, and I put some data here, you don't have to read all of it, but would you make a new battle royale game if you want to make a new game? Would you say yes or no? Why don't you just type a yes or no in chat so I can see what you're thinking, and then I'll explain what I would do and the way I would think about it. So I got 1 no and 1 yes. So somebody said maybe after playing it for a while. Come on, I'll give you guys a few more seconds before we move on. Can't be inferred directly, that is true. No. Okay, so the trend seems to be no, and yeah, that's a good point. If the idea is unique, maybe. Being a gamer, I need to play first. That's very true. But the funny part is when you're making a new game, there is nothing, right? You have a paper where you have an idea. So there is no thing you can actually prototype yet because you just have a piece of paper. And the idea is, do you invest in this? So let's move on to the answer. and then we can pick it up from there. So the first thing is, when you're looking at game titles for comparison, I always like to remove the top 3 titles from the chart. They're always so out of bounds from the rest of the titles out there that they're just runaway successes. And you want to learn from them. You want to, be the biggest game one day, but you don't compare to them because they've done something different. They've done something new. So, for example, if people say, "Oh, I want to make a battle royale just like Fortnite," I'm like, "No, not just like Fortnite. They were there at the right time with the right team with the right game." You want to learn from them. Absolutely, they've done some fantastic work. But let's start with making a good battle royale, and if we do that, we can get there, right? And then the other thing I hear from a lot of people: "Oh, Fortnite made $4 billion. If I make a new battle royale, I'm sure we can make at least half or even 1/4, and that's $1 billion. That's such a great idea." Yeah, that doesn't really work that way. $1 billion is a lot of money, right? There are very, very few games that reach that milestone. Making 50 million or $100 million is a lot of money. Getting to 1 billion, you need a very large team, and you need to get lucky with some timing and have some excellent game design. So you can't just say, "Hey, if the top game is X, if I'll make X by 4 or X by 10, it doesn't really work that way. But what does work is learning from the rest, right? Hey, Fortnite has a battle royale right now. PUBG has one. Call of Duty learned from that, and they made not only a PC battle royale, but one on mobile as well, right? That's something new and different. So that's what you can learn from it. The other thing is deep diving into Fortnite. What makes it so popular, right? They have a very accessible art style. And what I mean by that is, if you see PUBG and Call of Duty, they have a more war-oriented art style. So the thing is, it's something that appeals to me personally, and I find it fun to play, but not everybody would enjoy that. Would a teenager enjoy that? Maybe, maybe not, So, or would other user segments enjoy that? We don't know. But their, fun, cartoony art style appeals to a lot of different people. The second part is the competitive game. It's a competitive game and you can be a winner, and everybody enjoys that. I'm not sure how many of you know, Fortnite actually existed long before it became popular, and it was a computer game where you just played against the AI and you didn't really compete with each other. But once PUBG became successful, they added in the competitive mode, and that's what made it really, really successful. So it was doing the right thing at the right time. And the next part was, as I was mentioning, the accessible art style gave it a lot of virality amongst teenagers. So teenagers really talked about it. They went to school, it became really popular. So that's also something that really helped their successes. And then there's something different, like Apex Legends. Apex Legends was such a big secret that nobody knew about it. And one fine day in February, I think it was 2017 or 18, they just like, "Hey, there's this new battle royale called Apex from EA, and all the top streamers are playing it, and you should play." And I'm like, "Where did this come from? I worked at EA before, my friends. Like, where did this come from?" And it turned out that was their guerrilla marketing strategy, that they don't want to lead up and do alphas and betas for months. They just launched it, and it really, really worked for them. So sometimes it's not only about the game, it's about marketing and your overall strategy. So moving on, let's go to the more technical side. So I know there's a lot of words here and a lot of numbers. I'll walk you through all of it. So now, deep diving into the technical side, the first thing we measure in a game are basic metrics, right? How many players play the game every day? How much revenue do you make? And then there are technical acronyms around that. So DAU stands for daily active users. ARPDAU stands for average revenue per daily active user. And these are just colloquialisms we use in the gaming industry. But to simplify it, it's basically daily players and average daily revenue per user. Then going a slight level deeper, there's also basic game metrics, right? Players who completed a particular level, players who bought a particular character. And this is just data. This is not information like, I have done some analysis on this. This is something that is just measured every day. Once you start doing analysis, that's when it gets really interesting. So that's when we look at things like segmentation. So we say, how much have players spent and how do we categorize them? And this is one popular way of categorizing them. I think, it's by minnows, which are less than $5, dolphins, which are $5 to $100, and whales, which is and old school colloquialism, which are over $100. And then you can also add a second segmentation based on player age. So wait, is this a new player who's a whale and I spent $100? Or has this player been, here for 60 days already and now they spend their first $5? So this is one way you can segment your game. I mean, we generally go through 50 plus segmentations. This is just one small example. The other is doing deep dive analysis. Hey, we see a lot of people buying this new character, but they're not playing it. Like, why would you buy something and not play it? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So actually, since we're doing good on time, I'm going to see if I can do a quick annotation and actually show you how I made this graph. And this is real analysis that I did. So I'm going to make a quick graph here. And here are the number of people who play a character. And this is the amount of revenue you make from something. Sorry, I can't make a straight line, but this gives you an idea. So in the middle, you have all these people, who bought something and played it and it's all good. But I actually noticed a cluster of users here and a cluster of users here. And I was like, wait, why aren't they the same trend as everybody in the center? Let me look at them. So I looked at these people on the bottom right. So these are the people who played a lot on the x-axis, but haven't bought a lot. Why is that? It turned out that these were our free characters that were on rotation, and people could play them easily. So they would play them a lot because they were easy to use, but they wouldn't buy them for a full-time purchase because they were on rotation for a week, because they were so easy and didn't do a lot of damage. So they played a lot, but didn't buy them a lot. And then there were the people here. So these were the very interesting ones because they bought it, which is a lot of people bought it, but they didn't play it a lot. Why was that? So it took me quite some time to figure this out. And that's where your gaming experience comes in and your game design experience comes in, where I worked with my designer and found out that these particular characters were perceived to be the real OP characters or the really cool characters. So when you played them in a game or you faced off against them, they would kill everybody and you would feel like, oh my God, this character is the best. So you would go in and buy them. But they also had a high skill level. So you just couldn't, click and fire like these characters down here. You really had to learn them and click at the right second. So they were kind of hard to play. So a lot of people bought them because they're like, oh yeah, this is the best character, I'm going to buy it. But they didn't really play them because it required a high skill level and it was very hard to play. So this is just an example of one simple analysis I did many years ago, but this is the kind of analytics we look at. And then moving on, how then there are certain things you can do with machine learning and your data scientist. How do we figure out the right elo for a player quickly? Now, what is elo? Elo is a system to rank skilled players. So if anybody's played League of Legends or Dota or any kind of game that has a matchmaking system, they use either elo or a competitor called Glico to rank their players. This actually comes from the old school world of chess, where you have grandmasters and basic players. So, I'm a basic player of chess. I'll have the basic elo, let's say 1000. I actually don't know what it starts at. And, somebody like Vishwanathan Anand, who's the world champion, could have an elo of 2000, 3000, and a much higher elo. So the problem I was facing in my game is that to figure out the skill level of a new player, whether they were a pro or a newbie, it would take me 15 matches to do so. And by the time you reach your 15 matches and you've lost a bunch of matches, you don't want to play anymore. And working with my data scientist, I actually managed to reduce that down to 3 matches, just 3. And that was really quick. So you didn't lose a lot. You enjoyed yourself. You won a little bit. And I was able to put you at the right skill level. So that's the power of analytics, that you can really affect your business. Going through the tail end of this, there's the AERM funnel. I already spoke a little bit about this. As a PM, I look at my funnel every single day. And the last part is to optimize the funnel. I do a lot of A/B testing. Now, what is A/B testing? I give 2 similar things to a bunch of people and see which one players have a particular affinity for. For example, I'm selling a new character called a warrior, and I have a warrior bundle, and I want to put something in that, put some resources in that, but I don't know if I should give 100 food or 100 wood, or whether I should give 100 food or 200 food. I just don't know. So what I'll do is that I'll take 10% of my audience, split it into 2, and give both of them, I'll give one the food bundle and one the wood bundle. And depending on which one the players claim and they enjoy, I'll roll that out to the rest of the audience. So that's another kind of data analytics and segmentation you can do called A/B testing, which helps you make a better business and a better game for the players. I also have a few different analytics roles listed here. So there's a marketing analyst. We already covered performance marketing. So that's what they analyze. You have a game analyst who actually analyzes things within the game, like this little graph that I drew out. And I was a game analyst when I did that. And then you have the data scientist, which I mentioned, help you do the ML optimization. So that's a lot of analytics talk. Let's go on to the second example. So, you can type your answers into chat, but this is a scenario that's happened to me, I don't know, dozens of times. When, you come in the morning and your manager comes and tells you, oh no, the revenue fell by 50% overnight. Look into it right now. Everything's going crazy. As a product manager, if somebody tells you that the revenue fell by half, what data would you want to see, or what analytic would you want to look at? So, feel free to type your answers into chat. We can take a minute or two. I'll look at your answers and I'll go through the different kind of analytics I would look at. Daily users, absolutely. That's actually the first answer on my screen. First, don't panic and go through Twitter. Someone surely posted something. That's a great idea. I actually don't have that on my slide, but that's totally true. A lot of people will post on Reddit, on your Discord server, on Twitter, on a Facebook page. So yeah, the players always know better than you when something is happening because they're probably playing it much more than you. So yeah, that is correct. Introduce new features like, yeah, so did you introduce something new? That's totally on point. Focus on feedback mechanisms. That's correct. Streamers, Reddit. Yep, that's all good answers. So I'll get to your, I noticed a few people asked a few other questions. I'll definitely answer them. We're getting towards the tail end of the talk. But to go back to the presentation, let me close the chat windows. Okay, so some of you already guessed most of these. So the first thing you look at is the revenue still low or falling? Right? Because if something is still falling or if the revenue is still low, that means that error or issue is still happening. So the first thing you want to do is stop that issue. So you want to look at, is it still occurring? The second and the easiest thing to test is the game working. I've actually had it happen that the game goes off in some country, or some incorrect build was pushed and the game went down for a few minutes. So you definitely want to see the game. Then somebody mentioned how many players that are there. That's your daily active users, right? Yesterday we had 20,000 people. Today is it just 15,000? Maybe that's the issue. And then somebody talked about number 4 as well. Which sales did we release in the last 24 hours? Maybe we released a character that isn't popular or is underpowered or is just not good. So what did we release in sales? Then we get into the little bit deeper stuff. How many active payers are there? Not players, payers. So for example, I could have 20,000 people playing the game, but instead of my regular, let's say 2% payers, I could have only 1% or 0.5% payers. So then the payers just aren't paying for whatever reason, and then you can deep dive into that reason. The second is you could have the same 2% number of payers, but as I mentioned earlier, it could be only the minnows and not the whales. So it could be that your top spenders aren't there. So your players are correct, your number of payers are correct, but it's just which payer is playing or not. Then the next one is user acquisition, right? In mobile games and any free-to-play game, you are driving in people every single day. And someday it could just be your UA. Maybe you switch from a country that has high quality users who pay a lot to a country where people don't pay a lot in games. Or it could be you change your install channel that you generally acquire from Facebook, but you move to Apple Store ads, which may not convert as good. So that could make a difference. And I actually asked somebody this question at work, and they're like, did you actually check if the analytics are working correctly? Maybe everything is fine and the analytics system isn't working. So there can be many different reasons. But as you see, the idea is first test the critical stuff. Is it working? Is it still falling? Then look at the basic data, DAU, sales, payers, and then you start doing some deep diving about, hey, if it's not this and not this and not this, could it be this? So these are the different kind of analytics I have looked at, and believe me, this has happened to me more than once, probably 5 to 10 times at least. So Now I want to start talking about the main thing today, what today was about, which is envisioning the future. And the team asked me to particularly talk about this because I've covered what PMs do and what analytics I look at, but where is the industry going as a whole? So my personal, I would say, goal or my personal vision is towards cross-platform gaming, which is integrating gaming across PC, console, and mobile. Why do I personally believe in that so much? Because I love playing mobile games. I also love building my own PCs and playing PC games. And console is just easy when you're sitting on the couch. But I want to play the same game across. I want to play Diablo 3 not only when I'm sitting on my computer, but also on my phone when I'm commuting to work, or when we used to commute to work before COVID, or when I'm just at a friend's house and playing on his console. I want to be able to play that. And it's starting to get out there right now. There's a lot of games that are available on multiple platforms, but you can't pick up the same game. You can't say, hey, I'm going in for a raid on my PC, and then when I'm out and about outside on my mobile phone in the bus, I can just change my gear. We're starting to get there. We're not there yet. I do want to call out this game called Genshin Impact. It came out a few months ago, I think just like a month ago or a month or two ago, and it's been getting rave reviews. One, it is truly cross-platform, so it's on, I think, PS4, and it will come for PS5. It will be on Switch soon. It's on PC. It's on mobile, and its quality is similar to Zelda Breath of the Wild. So it's a very high quality game, and it is cross-platform. I don't know if it's cross-play yet. I still need to play it a lot more, but that's an example of something good and where the industry is going towards. I noticed the speaker before me covered AR and VR a lot, so I'll talk a bit more about streaming. So I've already worked with Twitch and streaming game content, but what about streaming games themselves? Right? You've all heard about Stadia. It's been around for quite a while now. I'm sure you saw the announcements for Luna, for Amazon Luna, which is again about brain streaming. And very recently, I think just a few weeks ago, Facebook announced the Facebook Cloud. So these are all about streaming games so that you don't need to own a high-end PC or the brand new console. You can just stream the game for the cloud and play it. So they're all similar, but a little bit different. And they're different because Stadia and Luna, they start with single player games because that's easy, right? It's just a single player game. You're going through the mission, you can go in and finish the game. Multiplayer is, I think, what both of them may aim towards, but it's much harder. When you're playing a game of Counter-Strike or Overwatch, 1 second of lag is too much lag. So people are really finicky about that. I understand. I've been an FPS gamer for a long time. So multiplayer is kind of the hard problem for them to solve. And Facebook Cloud is doing something completely different. What they did is that they're doing mobile games on Facebook, which is funny because it was like game like Farmville started on Facebook, and then they left Facebook to go to mobile, and now they're coming back. I mean, not that Farmville is coming back, but they've announced a few a few titles that are doing well on mobile and have done well for many years. And now that you can play them on Facebook as well. So for example, I was a big fan of WWE Supercards by 2K. Now that game you can play on Facebook Cloud. So they're doing something different. So that's another way to do game streaming. And then I have a comment for PS6 or Xbox XS. I made up these names, but the industry is talking about this. That right now we have the launch of the new console in 4, 5, 6 years. Will we still have consoles anymore, or will it all be about game streaming? I mean, we've already started. Maybe there won't be a console. Maybe it will all be PC and streaming. We don't know yet, but that's something the industry is actively talking about. Then, like I mentioned, the speaker before me already talked a lot about AR and VR on the technical side, so I'll cover the business side a little bit. Pokemon Go, everybody knows it, talks about it, the rage in the industry. What people don't know is that Niantic, which is the company that makes Pokemon Go, actually used to be a part of Google. It was a few employees at Google in, I think, like 2010 that banded together and made Niantic, and they made a game called Ingress, which was actually Pokemon Go without the Pokemon intellectual property. And it featured geocaching, which is you go around the world and you find something, you maybe hide something for somebody else to find. And that idea evolved into Pokemon Go, the Harry Potter game, and so on and so forth. Microsoft and Minecraft took it slightly different. They said, let's make Minecraft Earth. Let's bring your Minecraft creations to life. So if you're an avid Minecraft player, you can actually see it in the real world. You can just look through your phone and you'll see your castle or your tower or whatever you've made. So that's a different way to do augmented reality. And then when it comes to VR, the industry is definitely developing. I mean, I had an Oculus CV1 kit, which was the release kit, I think back in 2015 or 16 when it launched. And it was really good. The graphics were nice, amazing. I remember the T-Rex demo when the T-Rex would, the roar, and I would be like, oh my God, it's like the T-Rex is in front of me. So it was really, really fun. All the way through all the different releases of the Rift and Quest 1 to the Quest 2, where now it's wireless, and instead of costing $1,000, it's down to $400 or $300. So it's getting slightly more accessible and slightly cheaper. Graphics are becoming better. You don't need a PC to play it. So it is becoming much better. We're still not seeing a lot of AAA releases on it because it's a small audience. So there's not enough of a market maybe for AAA companies to publish, but I think they are getting there. And maybe in the next maybe 5-ish years, we'll start seeing this become more mainstream. So yes, but there are other competitors like PlayStation has PSVR, there's the HTC Vive, there's a Valve Index. So people are getting into this. I'm actually looking forward to playing some social games in VR. Like imagine playing, maybe the social component of World of Warcraft or maybe the entire game in virtual reality. Like that would be so much fun. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And and it's not only about games. There's also gamification. So one of the companies I'm really fond of is Duolingo. Yes, it comes from CMU, but no bias here. It's just I really like the app. I like learning languages, and I think Duolingo has done a great job at gamification. When I wanted to learn Spanish, they had XP in there. So I didn't go and say, okay, these are my 10 words for today. I have learned them. Good job. It's like, no, you get XP, and here you have these coins, and you can double your bonus for this week. And then they send me emails like you can see on the right, with hey, these are the number of words you have done and lessons you have completed. So it just makes it more fun, and it gives me more of an incentive to do what I am doing. So it doesn't change it. I'm still learning the language and words, but it just makes it a little better. So I think that's all for my presentation. I've talked a lot right now. I'll go through your questions right now. I'll start answering them. If you have additional questions for me, feel free to shoot me an email. But now it's time for some Q&A, and now I can get to your questions. So let me open up the chat again. Oops. Okay, so first in the chat, I noticed a few people had commented. Let me scroll up. I noticed Vibhuti had a question, how important frameworks like Agile and Scrum in the game tech industry from developing games? I think I would say it's pretty important. I mean, most gaming studios I have been part of, I think every single one followed a Agile and Scrum framework, right? You have your sprints. Generally, they're all 2 weeks. I have seen 3 or 4 week sprints, especially if you're in early development, because when you're so early doing, static 2 week sprints isn't really helpful. In fact, sometimes I've actually done 2 week sprints, moved to Kanban, and then moved back because when it's so early, everybody just picks a task and runs with it. So I'd say Agile and Scrum definitely have their place, but you do tend to move around depending on what you need. Let me see what other. Okay, I saw the same question. Let me go to the Q&A feature of Zoom and see what else is there. Oops. Okay, how can one get into the game industry? Which are the best technical assets you may have? So I think it depends on what do you want to do in the game industry. So, feel free to ask me a follow-up, like what role do you want, right? Do you want to be an engineer in the games industry? Do you want to be a technical artist? Do you want to be a graphic artist? Do you want to be a game designer, a product manager, an analyst, a project manager? So there's many different roles. So yeah, just let me know what role you're thinking about and I can probably give you more information. Ashish, one trend we see in your games are microtransactions. Do you think that has an effect on how people like the game or how long the game stays in the mainstream because of microtransactions? So that's a really good question. Something that I definitely work on a lot. I think there's a reason for microtransactions, and I'll give you a quick little bit of history. So the way games used to be made, they would have a $60 box game. You would launch it, people would like it or dislike it, and you would move on to the next game. What you didn't see on the business side is that you had a game team that had been working on the game for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and let's say now you have 100 people studio. Once the game is done, what do these 100 people do? When you want the next game, you need only a prototype team of 10, 15 people. So they will get laid off. And then the industry, like, it probably doesn't make sense to hire, fire, hire, fire. So let's keep doing the game. That's how DLCs became popular, downloadable content. So after you release the game, once a year or twice a year, they would do big content pack that would let everybody keep employed, and you could work on the next game at the same time. So it became better for the industry. Once you move to mobile, you realize that people aren't willing to pay for games, but once they play it a little, microtransaction makes it a little easier where you can get into a game and then figure out whether you want to spend or not. So I don't think games stay in the mainstream because of microtransactions. I think they stay because of game design, and microtransactions is what helps the game team fund the business. So for example, right, take a top game like Supercell games, Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, Brawl Stars, right? They don't stay in the mainstream because they make so much money. They stay in the mainstream because they're inherently good games. So I think making a good game is more important than good microtransactions. But yes, once you have a good game, you also want to run a good business. How do free-to-play games make money? Free-to-play games make money with microtransactions. There's many different styles of that. Like, I'm sure you all have heard of Battle Pass. You can have recurring subscription revenue. You can have $1 microtransactions. You can have no ads in the new genre of hyper-casual games. So there's different way to make games. Watch an ad, you make money. Pay for no ads, you make money, and so on and so forth. What should we do to be recognized by top gaming companies? I know one of the ways that people get recognized is honestly work on games and launch them. It was the hardest thing ever for me to break into the industry. Like I mentioned, I gave over 100 interviews, trying to figure out what do I want to do and what is gaming. What is this DAU and ARP? I've never heard of that. So, learning from people who are already there, reading up on certain websites and blogs, which in fact I will show you. So I had an appendix slide in case we had more time. So this it was about battle passes and whether they're good or bad and so on. I won't go through that, but I will show you these two websites, deconstructoroffun.com and medium.com/gg digest, good game digest. So Deconstructor of Fun is run by a bunch of PMs who are actually doing their full-time job, and they contribute to this website, and they break down a lot of the top games from a PM perspective: acquisition, engagement, retention, monetization. And they're not short deconstruction, they're like 5, 10, 15 pages long sometimes, and they use data from Game Refinery and a bunch of other top gaming websites. So definitely check that out if you want to see real life analysis of games. The other one is Good Game Digest. You can just type GG Digest into Google. These are, again, a bunch of PMs and games. They give you a lot more of the game's news. If you want to know what is happening in the gaming industry, you can go here and they send you an email every couple of days or a weekly digest, and you can see what's happening. That's how I keep up to date about what's happening. Okay, I think I have answered these. Let me see if there's anything else. Okay, moderators, can you let me know if I'm missing any questions? I think I answered all of them. Yeah, my LinkedIn link is given on the website, but it is, you can just search for Vikrant Agarwal or Vic Agarwal and you can find me there. Okay, I think I have answered all the questions.
Thank you so much, sir, for driving us into the gaming world. I believe the participants has carried away the thing. You just work on the stuff that you like and you are passionate about what you don't have to have a master plan with how things should be. Uh, and your insights and views on using the gaming technology in the development of cognitive skills have been truly insightful. And CSIS team is delighted to present you a virtual token of gratitude.
Thank you.
I hope my screen is visible right now.
Oh, yes, it is. Thank you. Screenshot. Oops.
Done. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. It was a great session.
Absolutely. And if anybody has questions, just shoot me an email or connect with me, and I'm happy to answer more questions.
Thank you, sir. The
Thank you,
session
Vikrant.
was really interesting for all the participants, and I'm sure they got to learn a lot about gaming technology. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Especially the gamers out there.
Very true.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you
Thank
for
you. Thanks a lot,
Yes,
sir.
Vikrant. I would like to tell to others that the Vikrant was chair PICT IEEE student branch. I think in 2007, right?
Yes, sir. 2007. It's been a while.
Yes, yes. So I want to ask you a question. So how IEEE helped you to build your career? Just
So I think the
because
way,
all are IEEE members.
yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, IEEE was pretty pivotal for me. When I joined as a first year student in college, I had no idea what IEEE or student branches. And that year, in fact, I think that was the year we were doing a computer society event, and I learned from my seniors. And in my second year, I think that's the year I became vice chair and I started leading a lot of events. And I wanted to talk to a lot more people and share my love of technology. So I started this small newsletter called Ping, which stood for PICT IEEE newsletter group, because I want to share that love for tech. And using that, we reached out to a lot more people and shared our love of IEEE and gaming, in fact, at that time. And then it eventually grew and it led me to talking to a lot of people. And I think it mainly helped me not only understand technology better and learn how to talk to technologists, but also just talking to people and influencing. And as I mentioned, one of the key qualities for a product manager is leadership. And I wouldn't have been so used to talking to so many different people if I didn't have that opportunity to be part of the IEEE branch, hold events, talk to different people, because now I'm used to doing that and I can use it in my career.
Okay, great, great. Thank you, Vikrant.